Hello and welcome to HCD Robustness meeting. We have a couple of things on our agenda, and hopefully this time we will go through it fully. Um, but if you have any topic and want to ask any questions, yeah, feel free to do that. I think we should always try to address the pending questions. So I didn't have I don't have any like high level topics other than going through issues. I think and current failures. I see the first question is about current failure. In the robustness test, I think we can just like focus on that. Um, there are maybe two interesting parts that I will just quickly jump into, which is the ongoing changes. I think there are two interesting changes that are currently, one has happened and the second is pending for the robustness test, and that's all. With that, I think we can just start and go to answer to Ahmed's question about the test grid. So yeah, there were a couple of failures in the robustness test recently, or there is an increased number of failures. I currently don't look at the pro. So for everyone to understand, there are two environments currently where etcd runs tests. One is the etcd GitHub actions or GitHub actions. We are slowly migrating to Kubernetes Pro. I currently don't look at Pro I didn't look at Pro for a long time because it was much flakier and less stable. And then GitHub Actions, it was related to performance. So we were still tuning the performance of it, but now both should be, I think, stable. It's just like I personally don't have enough time to look at both. But yeah, this question is relevant about the increased or the continuous failures. And the continuous failures, like you can, if you look at the job, the continuous failures happen between 15th to 18th, I think, as pointed out by Ahmed. And they are also present. Or maybe they were not present on the GitHub. So for context, I'm looking at the want to double check and correlate both CIs because this set of failures is on me. And I know I introduced a bug and it took me a couple of days to fix it. But since this success, so since 14th of May, everything should be everything should be passing. So to answer the question, should we open an issue on GitHub? What's the best practice? So usually, or the best case scenario would be that we are able to look every time we have a flake or like series of flakes, we would be able to quickly mark them, assign one-to-one issue to them. So I don't think this is implemented in Pro or supported, nor GitHub Actions, to have a link from a CI failure to the issue. But I think a test grid should have this feature. So test grid is a UI over the Pro, and we need to find that CD. Okay, here. So in the periodic, all the tests here are the same test as he can show up here. You just need to pick the correct thing. So this is our AMD64 robustness test, and you can see them here, like those values. And this is much easier to discover and find. And I don't know if, yeah, this is what I meant. Test grid supports filing a bug. Wow, that's nice. And but the bug goes to Kubernetes. So maybe we need to figure out how to do that to make sure that test grids, but at least on the test grid, in let's say internal version of test grid that I use in my work, if you file a bug and connect it from one to the other, it will show up in UI for new people that, oh, this failure has a bug connected to it. And that's where you get one-to-one. So that would be the best case scenario, that it's clear that when you see a failure, you know, yes, that there is a bug created for this exact failure or a series of failures. And then then it allows everyone to make make the mapping, and it's shared for everyone. However, until we figure out how to do it and how to use it, it's up to anyone to. There is like not necessarily a best practice. I usually just looked through issues one by one, or when it was just me, I just looked at the failure and one by one, and if there was anything interesting in it, I just mark it. But if we can, maybe we can start. We can change the approach and start assigning an issue for each failure, whatever is the best approach to track map failures to the or to make sure that it's clear for everyone that someone is working on this exact flake and is investing. And it's clear that someone is working on it and it was investigated or has been investigated already to avoid duplicated work. Currently, we don't have a good way. Like GitHub Actions doesn't support filing a bug or mapping a failure to a bug. So long term, I would want us to migrate fully to Pro and use the test grid to make one-to-one assignment, if that's possible. I don't know. We could look into checking if we can reconfigure it to point to etcd repo or instead of Kubernetes repo. And then handle it like this, one-to-one. Until we have this, I hope that we could, use like those either agree that if someone wants to investigate, we either use it, like use this meeting to analyze them, or distribute them. Maybe we could distribute it on the meeting, or either by having them like here or by issues. But that I think we can like I can adjust to the what is preferenced by you. Any is it that I don't know if I made it clear, but Ahmed, do you have is this?
No, it was fine. Thank you. I was just looking to know how do you react to this situation. Uh, just that
Mhm.
I figured out something. Thank you.
Uh, yeah. So my high level idea is that if there are set of failures like this, uh, for now we meet every 2 weeks, and during this meeting we go through them one by one and double check if they're and ensure that they were investigated, and do them by one. But in the so do it during the meeting. But like in this case, if there is someone that wants to volunteer to do it, investigate by themselves, we could have a list of those failures and then agree that we skip, or we agree that if someone else investigated, we can we can skip it during the meeting.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Mm, so okay. So that question answered. Are there any other questions? I will check the chat. Oh, that's awesome. So let me write it. Um, Feel free to file an issue for that. That's. I mean, we could file an issue for each like test to track, or we should track our work. But it's hard if we have 20 failures and most of them are flakes and we don't want to file. But for this kind of issue, feel free to track. So yeah. Mm, yeah. TestGrid is an open and Pro are open source projects, so we can look into them uh, and verify how you can do that. Or other would be useful to ask Kubernetes seek testing. Maybe they know more. So yeah. So I don't know much about test grids aside of the things that I used. So simple jumping into the failure, but they should know maybe more. Um, Recent robustness issues. I wanted to quickly jump into the two PRs that are relevant. One is this one, and this is the second one. I wanted to really thank Suan for implementing this PR. It's great. So if you don't know, Suan, she is working on downgrades for etcd, and one of the downgrades challenges is how do we make sure that etcd behave during the rolling or zero downtime rolling upgrade or downgrade of etcd, there are no correctness issues, which means it would be very hard to test. But what she proposed was to add additional configuration to robustness test, which now during the cluster setup randomizes what combination of options we run the cluster, and she implemented that in 60% of chance we test the latest version of etcd, but in 20% we run one older member, which is the lead, but and depending on which case, sometimes it is a leader, or latest version is the lead, or current version is the leader, or last version is the leader. So all the combinations that are relevant. And this means we are now much safer, and I feel really much safer to make any changes in etcd, because this test protects us from introducing a breaking change into 3.6 that would make it incorrect in some way with 3.5, resulting in some inconsistency or incorrectness. And this is fully automatic. We already tested. I think that latest run should, I don't know if I merge it soon enough, but latest run should already include this, I hope. 14 maybe I was late by a couple of minutes, so maybe we'll get tomorrow. I will need to double check if this, but this is like really awesome work. And so you can, if you want to check, read the PR and check how you add a feature like this. It's very awesome. But this is for me, it's a game changer in things that I feel secure to allow people to change in etcd, and in things that I like I would want to add in etcd 3.6, or yeah. So that's awesome. And second issue is compaction support in robustness test. I've been working on previous meeting. I mentioned that there is um, robustness test issue, or like correctness issue, that caused etcd to decrease revision after, like, if there is a panic during compaction in very specific case. And this one or the other, I don't remember. Or maybe the other. It's also about like watch the events being lost due to compaction. So we have problem with our compaction logic, because it's not tested by robustness test. So for some time I've been working on implementing the compaction, and it works. The tests now work, and it found that compaction is not linearizable, which doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, or it's a bug, but it means that we should figure out if this is a correct behavior. The reason it is a bug is or how we know it is a bug is that you can have two compactions that happen concurrently, and let me make it better. First one or first one by revision that is returned, which is this one, that returned revision 581, compacted revision 574. But there is other compaction that was done concurrently, and it technically was returned higher revision, but compacted earlier. So there is a mismatch. So those two operations should not be. You cannot make match that you have. Like in this example, higher revision compacted but lower, or higher revision compacted but lower revision in response. This is not kind of exist. And I go into more detail why it's not necessarily a bug, but it's something to be watchful and document. It's something that could be problematic if someone doesn't. If it's not documented and someone doesn't understand that etcd uses the same field for return revision, but depending on what method you call, sometimes this revision is a global revision for the cluster, or sometimes it's just the local revision of the cluster, and sometimes it's between one and the other. Like it's not. It's a simple API, but very hard semantic like implications, because you cannot you need to know when you can use this revision to know what is the latest revision in cluster. It's not every request will give you latest revision in cluster. Yeah. So maybe we can agree, if someone is interested in finding the why etcd behaves like that, feel free to look into that. I'm not sure. Really, I'm not sure. It's not trivial for me to guess why it happens like this. I think it's a race. Yeah. If there are no questions about this, let's maybe go to. Let me copy the PR. And maybe let's finally look at some failures in robustness test. Uh, so first, let's maybe look at the comment by Ahmed about the linearization. And unfortunately, you hit the bug that I mentioned, and or I guess so. So if you don't follow the uh, my PRs, unfortunately, it's I don't know if I reproduced it, but there is so it should be closed. And yeah, oh, this is one, I think. Uh, hmm. I would need to double check, but this is not a failure. Um, if there is a log that says that assumption was broken, it means that linearization might not return. Yeah, if this log is present, it means that other information might not be relevant. I think maybe we should avoid writing. I don't know what. I would guess that this should prevent writing linearization, but that's not guaranteed. Maybe let me check the code. So it should be invalidate validate. So if there is a broken assumption, it should fatal. So I don't know. Uh, oh,
So
okay.
here I was confused about how to reproduce this or validate the report on my local, and I run the make validate report and got that error. And I was confused about uh, if this is a bug related to robustness or other thing. That's generally my question here.
Mhm. Okay. Uh, what happened here? Out of this is mm, so. I don't think this is a bug. I think this is a timeout. So what you're saying here is how you describe this as revision jumping from 520 to 513. Hmm. I assume you do that because of the line here, but this line doesn't mean it's correct line that HCD really went. It's just the best approximation that linearization can do. And I assume because this linearization timed out, if maybe I should add it, document it. Let's see if it works. Unfortunately, yeah, the files and for log files are pretty. So if the linearization times out, it will point. It will, and I. Oh yeah, my Chrome died because it's too big file to process in Chrome, so I need to download it. Okay, let it download. So if the linearization times out, what happens is the Porcupine library will show you the longest connection that it was able to produce, but not and show you where, but it doesn't here. It meaning it jumps to first error is just what was the longest linearization that it was able to do. So maybe what is lacking is this file doesn't say has it found history to be not linearizable versus has it timed out when trying to finish find the linearization. And the reason it timed out is there was a lot of concurrent requests that failed. And when there is a lot of concurrent requests that failed and all of them are writes because they're like writes, it means that to find a line between all of them that is continuous, you have like there is some combination of those requests that if you put a line through all of them, it will make sense. But there is an exponential number of linearization that might be wrong, and it causes it goes into exponential time and it might time out. So usually to confirm that. Okay, so the second problem with GitHub Actions is that they tend to not allow you to download the logs because the
Yeah,
connection.
that's so buggy. Last week I had
Yeah,
so much trouble downloading that file.
I can't wait to get to Pro. Like maybe I'm biased, but Pro just works. Like it just uploads it to a bucket, like GCS bucket, like Google Cloud storage, which just works. So I don't know if we will be able to get the answer here. Um, One suggest like if someone is interested, the reason that the files are so big and we cannot get the file is it's so big that it doesn't fit anywhere. It doesn't fit in like the window here. You cannot open it. Chrome crashes, and you need to basically download it, and then you get and then you get a archive that is broken because it's a GitHub. Uh, so yeah, I will without logs you cannot confirm this, but what I expect is it will say that linearization timeout. So maybe it's something that should be added into robustness test documentation. That currently I only discuss uh, the case that there is linearization success and the case where there is linearization failed. But there is third case which will say linearization timed out. And linearization timed out means it looked for long time and didn't find anything, didn't find neither path that shows that linearization is the history is linearizable or not, or prove that there is no such path, which means we cannot conclude. Usually it's a bug on robustness, or it's a problem with robustness testing, not limiting the history combinations too much. So it's usually the reason is that I think there was a just too many failed concurrent requests in this scenario. And to avoid this, I just try to limit number of concurrent requests in robustness test because it causes history like this, which is very costly to linearize. From how could I confirm that as a human that this is not a bug is I could just go to revisions, and if I go to revision 5.12, 5.13, 5.14, is there a write for 5.14? All of those are reads. Is there a write? Here is a write with 5.14. 5.15 exists, 5.16 exists, 17 exists, 18 exists, 19 exists, 20 exists, 21 exists. So revision like I could graph the line between all the revisions, so at least the revision was correct. because all of them are concurrently, like in it would take me a lot of time to find the path and validate this. It's yeah, this is how I at least know that the history does this history is looks correct. Does it make sense?
I guess maybe I need to compare some more results and I can figure out which is
Yeah,
correct and which
yeah.
is not.
We can
Kind of I
go.
understand.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, we can go. It's better to start from simple linearization and then like graduate to the harder one. Okay. Mm, let me maybe clean those and clean those and start with taking the latest one. So we have still 20 minutes. Here is the latest linearization that failed today on ARM 64. Unfortunately, after 3 hours 20 minutes, which means it's a timeout. So maybe it's similar problem. And I don't see that file being uploaded. Where is the file? Oh, okay. So there is no file. Like it will be hard to debug this linearization failure. Reason is it's timed out, which means there was similar issue with too many concurrent requests that causes linearization to, instead of taking a second, to take 5 minutes. And maybe it's something for us to improve to reduce the how long it like 3 hours 20 minutes is the timeout. So if this job takes 3 hours 20 minutes, if this path takes 3 hours 20 minutes, it will just be like the linearization, the process will be killed, which means we'll not get any results in the summary, and the only thing we have is logs, and logs are not enough to find the failure. Like I confirm if it was a real problem. It's mostly a flake. So this is a flake on robustness testing due to test time out. And we can suggestions for improvements. So this timed out because if linearization, yeah. Oh, we have full logs, which is good. So yeah, here it was failed, and this is stack trace when the test timeout. This is the timeout. We could increase the timeout, which I don't particularly like. I would try to understand why the test runs so long. So um, why time? So the first thing would be to try to understand why the times of runs increased, and we can try to look into history of some tests taking 3 hours 20 minutes, 40, 50, sometimes 50, sometimes 5, or this is overall time, so sometimes there is no worker prepared, so it can go into 5 hours, but around it should go. So there is no case that it's increased. It's just sometimes randomly the test takes longer, which means usually it's a linearization issue. And what we can look is for the exact uh, log for the linearization timeout. Oh, there is no. Our Chrome already crashed. Mm, or there is a lot of logs with a lot of interesting logs with drop draft internal message and fail to reach peer. And this implies that the cluster was unhealthy after we injected the failure. Something, the cluster availability suffered and it didn't recover. I think there is a timeout for the test to be 40 seconds, but it can write a lot of logs in it, apparently. Yeah. I think there is, okay, so. Let me look for. We should look. The best way to debug is to find the latest test that passed, and there is a lot of tests that pass. Maybe let's look from. Oh no. Yeah. Best way to do it is locally using grep and less, but I don't want to depend on the GitHub archive download. Maybe it will work because the file should be smaller. So this is the last case that the test passed, and this is the next run, and it should include the case that the test somewhere below should be the case where the test started, the cluster started misbehaving. Sorry if this is not super fun, but deactivating fail point. So this is a Rafts before save fail point. But this test passed. Linearization took like 700 milliseconds. Here we have another test. Maybe I should look for run. Last run. So this is the last run, or should be. And in this last run, yeah. Started traffic. Setting fail point or before save. Oh, this is the fail point. Oh. Yeah. And this is a bug in etcd. Oh, nice. So we found a bug in etcd. It's great. Why it's a bug? Because this log execute the job failed, apply server apply will not happen in any normal operation. And it basically means etcd panicked on the internal job that executes the apply. So there are two issues. It means, or this implies two separate issues. One issue, there is etcd can panic. And this is the problem. I don't know. I will put it here to not forget, but there are two issues. etcd can panic and time, and second, robustness test didn't recover and finish the test. So I would expect if etcd panicked and is unrecoverable, robustness test should cut it. Like okay, the cluster is useless. The test should fail, but it should not time out and run forever. So both could be a GitHub issue. That is worthy to do. Does it make sense? Are there any questions about this? I hear not. So we can see that, yeah, we just got into case that etcd thought that snapshot exists, but it didn't exist, which is not great. That etcd can. There is an edge case that etcd can panic. So next thing I would do, maybe I will do after, is to file issues for both. Maybe I can do it just quickly now. First, which is good to look, is maybe it's not a new issue, it's existing issue. So to look for issues, there are open issues with that. There are no open, no closed issues. File to open, snapshot doesn't exist. Serious? I thought I'd seen this kind of issue in the etcd project. File doesn't exist. Okay, so we don't have an issue open for it. So let's file an issue. Bug report. etcd 3.6 can panic due to missing snapshots. Maybe let's say robustness test. What happened? This happened. What do you expect? So currently we don't have reproduction. Maybe we, like a good issue filing should provide reproduction steps, but let's say we will do it later. etcd 3.6, so like the main branch, nothing here. I can add robustness testing because I have write access. But okay, so that's one. The other case, flaking. We can report a flaking test. Robustness doesn't recover. Test doesn't. It actually panics. GitHub Actions. Pro robustness test. Reason for failure. Actually panic. This is like irrelevant, but yeah. I would expect that robustness test. Yeah. Robustness test. Okay, that would be what I expect to happen from from this failure, this exact failure. Sometimes I myself don't file an issue like this if the solution is trivial and I can do it on like within implement it quickly. But finding why the etcd panic and what was here like what was the race that caused etcd to think there is a snapshot when there is not is very hard. And finding exact case why robustness tests continued to try to run the test even etcd was unhealthy is also non-trivial, because you would need to find there is a lot of logs to go through. So I just like I can file it and do it later. So I can maybe close this and let's provide two links to the two bugs here. And if anyone is interested, feel free to look into them. And now, yeah, and now we can like pick the issues. Okay, we have 7 more minutes. Should we look maybe to the pro failures? So what would be the pro failure link? Maybe I can just cheat and take the link by Ahmed. So to make sure we have, or let's just use test grid. So the benefit of test grid is you can see just both tests. Okay. The UI is a little bit different, and the cutting, like the test run, is a little bit different. We only care about CI etcd robustness. I would want to have a tab, so if someone wants to create, like reconfigure this to have a separate tab just for robustness, that would be easier versus periodics, because now we have performance testing. And we have 3 scenarios, like ARM, 3.4 AMD, and 3.5. The latest failure is on 3.5 from today, yes. So maybe let's look at it. The benefit of Pro is that it parses the logs. So it found exactly, so shows you which test has failed, and you can see only the logs that are relevant and don't need to scroll through gigabytes of logs on Pro on GitHub and don't care. So my strong suggestion is like be lazy and use Pro for everything. So here the test failed, and here is the reason. The reason here is the required minimal QPS was not enough. So everything else passed, but the required QPS, which is not great. The reason that required QPS has not failed is that we, in this cluster, somehow we only had 50% of success rates. What's on traffic before failure injection, which means we create a cluster and we try to send requests to it with some timeout, which is important. And it means 50% of requests didn't fit in timeout, because before we inject the fail point, all the requests should pass. Like the only case that they will not pass is timeout. So it means that our timeout is too strict. So, and this is consistent with what I have been seeing. So this is the case where the CI, or either we added too much heavy requests to the robustness test, which causes the overall request to become slower, or the CI is slow. And it's hard to guess, but I have seen consistently that the success rate was getting lower and lower. So my guess, this is an issue with the timeout being too strict. So let me add, maybe, let's reorder everything. Yeah. What is the best place to do that? This is the test failure. This is the relevant thing. I don't know. or maybe let's not reason low QPS yes due to 50% success rate due to timeouts. And if you like, I know this is timeout because I know that everything else. If you looked at the report, if you looked at the request, you would find the errors in the request being the timeout. So the suggestion increase the timeouts for requests in robustness tests. Uh, I've been testing already because it's been causing me problems in different. So if anyone wants to increase, I mean, I could do that quickly. Increase timeout to 200 milliseconds. So the current timeout is uh, in the traffic. Current timeout is 40 milliseconds. Oh, this is my PR already. Uh, and I've been testing it for some time and trying to look at the failure rates. And I've been observing that this is uh, that the robustness test there is a low like success rate on request before it. So now I looked into around 200 milliseconds because this is the I get success rate one and before. Uh, so here's the log that is I just filtered the log already. Have success rate one and yeah, a number of requests of 1,000. On my computer, sometimes there is a one even for 40 milliseconds, which is interesting. But this is like the problem with CI. The performance on CI can be much, much, much lower because there is much less number or number of cores is much lower and performance per core is much lower. But I can already fix this. Mm. 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 Okay. Who want to review a PR? Yeah, let me just create it. Yeah, sometimes like this kind of issue is sometimes it's very they're very trivial issues because they don't show up for a long time. Like you can see like here, they don't show up for a long time until number of other factors accumulates enough that they become they start causing flakes consistent flakes. So with that, we have gone through three or at least three failures on the CI, and um, we have created at least two bugs and one PR, which I would treat very successful. If you manage to follow everything, that's great. You're awesome. If you need, if you have still questions, I'm happy to answer. It's the things that we are doing here are pretty complicated, so feel free to ask me on Slack, to reach out to me on Slack and ask any questions. I'm happy to explain it because it's. I know I went fast through all the things we but I think it's understandable that there is a lot of things to learn, and we need to make sure that I want to make sure that everyone is able to follow what we are doing. With all this, I think we are done. If there are are there any other questions still relevant to those three reports or those issues that we filed? Was this useful? Maybe question.
Yes, very much. Very, very useful. Thank you.
Okay, that's. I'm happy if it was useful for at least one person. That's good enough for me. But I see more and more. I think more, I don't know, emojis, but they're not showing on chat. But I think I'm happy that there are some reactions and people are able to follow. With that, we can finish the meeting, and so have a great your local time is if it's morning or evening. Hope to see you in 2 weeks, and maybe we can start doing every like more things independently, and people can, I know, volunteer. I would be happy to see people volunteer to do some things themselves, because I don't want to like, take too much slots. I think that's you can we can start doing reverse shadowing other people. Okay, so thank you very much, and hope to see you in 2 weeks.